the document that has all of the amendments, so that this bill, along with this material, can return to the House of Parliament. Before we move into the order of business, I'm just going to ask Senator Allen, you wanted to say a word of prayer as we get into the meat of the business?
Certainly. Heavenly Father, as we gather together to discuss the business of the country at this very important time, we ask for your guidance and your continued guidance on these proceedings. For those who are to join, we ask for safe journey, and we ask that at the end of it all, we'll be proud of the result of the work that we've put in over these past few months. These are all the mercies we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Okay, the first order of business would be the minutes of the previous meeting. Which,
Chairman, we
yes?
haven't dealt with apologies for absence.
Apologies, thank you, Kamisha. Any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman, we got apologies from Senator Donald Webby, Senator Aubin Hill, Minister Favor Williams, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, and Mrs. Ricketts Walker.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, Kamisha. I totally, that slipped me. So the matter of the minutes of the last meeting. Kamisha, these were circulated?
Yes, Chairman, I circulated both sets of minutes.
Right. So I just want to know if there are any amendments to those minutes. I mean, they're quite procedural. And if there are no amendments to those minutes, can we have a motion for them to be confirmed?
I so move.
Member Robinson, can I have it that you seconded? Or Senator Allen?
Minister, I'm just confirming one thing, that I was at both those meetings.
All right, you were you at? I can second, Amisha.
You can, and a member can second even if he or she was not present at the meeting.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Senator Allen. All right. So I don't think there are any matters arising apart from what constitutes a business today, or any matter arising can be consumed in the business for today, which is to review the report to the report of this committee, which has sat now for 2 years, I think, during COVID. So if we can just turn our attention to this report, the report is approximately 18 pages long, including the signature pages. And if there are any comments on, if I can just go through a few pages at a time, pages 1, 2, or 3, any comments? Yeah, I mean, I think they captured our, right? If none on 1, 2, and 3, what about 4, 5, and 6?
Well, Chairman, let me just say, I had gone through the previous report. I saw on my way here that a revised report was made with changes, with some amendment to it. Can we, I think if we could look at that amended report.
Look at amendments, the changes that were made. Right, we could do that. Can you highlight those changes for us? What are the changes made in this, with this very last draft, Kamisha?
Can you give me a second, Chairman?
Mm-hmm. You have them highlighted on your screen?
I'm looking at it. Give me a minute, please.
I believe the first change to your new report would be on page 6, clause 52.
Mhm.
Kamisha, give us an update as to what you're doing so we understand what the holdup is, please.
I am
Yeah.
looking at the document. I was trying to share the screen, but I'm having some challenges.
I have a screen that is frozen.
On page 52, most of the changes, Chairman, were typographical. So for page 52, I removed the word that.
Yeah.
Page 52 or clause 52?
Clause.
Clause 52, page 6.
Yeah.
So I removed the word that. There are 2 references to the word that.
Correct. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it was just a typographical error. So that's the first change.
Okay. What was the second one?
So under clause 87,
Mhm.
just a minor change, Chairman. I placed a full stop at the end of the
Yes,
paragraph.
yes, can see that. Yes, yes, indeed. And then clause 168, is that the next one?
Yes, clause
Nine.
168 and 169, Chairman.
Mhm.
The information that was at clause 168
Mhm.
rightly should be at clause 169.
Okay,
So the paragraph that said it was proposed that clear language be inserted in the act,
yes,
that was changed. That was placed at 168. And I changed it after that, and it is now at clause 169.
understood. All right, if there are no queries on that, we can move to the next one.
All right, so the next one is clause 218. And I had professional privileges. It should be professional privilege. So I'd remove the S from privileges.
Mm-hmm. Professional privilege, right, on the second to last line in the original. Right.
Okay.
With the S
On right.
Mm-hmm.
On page 11,
Mm-hmm.
the penultimate paragraph, it says when matters are aired. So it's line 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
8. Okay. So it's matters rather than matter.
Right.
Okay, the next change would be at clause 270, and it is substituted rather than substitutes.
Okay.
Yes, at 280, I just rephrase the sentence based on the amendments.
Right.
And on page 13, I inserted the word the after the word it in the first line under the heading definition of personal effects. And that's about it, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for pointing those out. Member Hilton?
Yes, Chairman.
Right.
No,
So
I'm fine with those changes.
Fine. All right, so can we move to have this report adopted by the committee?
Chairman.
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Edward. What?
Right, so I understand that we would have substantially completed the work. However, it is my task this afternoon to raise a few issues. The first, Chairman, has to do with the new customs tariff 2022, specifically, which touches and concerns the first schedule of the bill. That is a substantial amendment that we are seeking. And Chairman, you'll recall that the Customs Tariff Revision Amendment Resolution of 2022 was passed in Parliament, further to the approval of Cabinet. The new, I'll shortly refer to it for convenience as the Customs Tariff 2022. It is based on the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, the 2022 edition of the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, and it took effect in Jamaica on June 1, 2022. You may recall, Chairman, that I had mentioned previously in this committee that depending on how long it takes us to finalize the process in relation to the bill, that the first schedule may be affected by this 2022 HS, because at the time it was being worked on in CARICOM. And so that process has now been...
We just passed in Parliament.
We just passed it in Parliament.
Yeah.
And so it is now necessary for us to lift portions of the first schedule out of the bill and replace them with the Customs Tariff 2022, because that is now the edition of the HS that Customs will be using.
Right. So can we, Member Hilton, can we, because we understand that we're trying to, work on a moving train, all right? This custom tariff resolution, you were in the House when we, Member Robinson was in the House when we passed this just a few weeks ago. And what we're trying to do is just to, at a point in time, produce a whole and complete Customs Act. If we didn't make this amendment here, then it would not be complete as at the time of its passage. So can we just agree that that we won't have to meet again, that they will just lift from here? We have the entire process in Parliament to go through. They'll lift from here, from this resolution, and include it in the list of amendments.
The only thing I request, I have no issue, Chairman.
It's already passed by the House. Yeah.
Right. The only thing I request is that the revised or amended report that be submitted, giving us a few days to
look at it before we sign it. Yeah.
Right.
No problem. No problem with that.
I want to just also mention, for full disclosure, Chairman, that you may recall at the meeting on January 20, we had proposed a revised arrangement of sections. And so while it is that we're adopting the new HS 2022, we're also going to be superimposing on that the new revised arrangement of sections. So it will be the same information that is in HS 2022, but the subheadings may look a little different, not substantially different, but a bit different.
So that revised structure that you referenced is not in this revised report?
No, it wouldn't be reflected in the report at all. Well, yes, the report would have some aspects of it, but we will still be making a few tweaks.
Oh, tweaks, okay.
Yes. So for example, we would have mentioned provisions as to rates, and we'll be adding the words of the common external tariff, right? To just bring it in full alignment with what is in the HS. You would also see, for example, that in the HS 2022 that was passed, the placement of one of the subheadings is different as opposed to how it had been previously. And we'll be adopting that new placement that was done in the HS 2022, but it would not have been reflected in the minutes and would not have been part of the previous recommendation that had been made.
Okay, okay. Yeah, okay, Minister, Chairman, I don't have a difficulty with that. As I said, my only request is for some time to review before we come, before it's
Before we require to sign, yes.
yeah.
No problem with that. And I'd ask
Um,
that we highlight any changes to the report that
Right.
would arise because of these updates.
Right. And let me just ask a related question on the on the rules. What's the way forward on the rules that would be supportive of this new revised custom law?
Well, that work is underway, Member Hilton. Certainly, I think fact that we've wrapped up the bulk of this portion with the Principal Act, the team will be able to renew and has to be more, do additional efforts in relation to the development of the rules. But that work had always been ongoing and had continued even as we were working on the principal legislation.
That's my understanding. That's why I was asking.
Right.
Where is that? What's the timeline for your own timeline that you've given yourself for completing that? Because you know the reason I ask, of course, because to finalize the act, we'd want to see because there are a number of provisions in which we said those would be concerns were raised, and we intimated that those would be addressed by the rules. Okay? So we'd like to at least see the rules to see what sort of how those issues or concerns have been addressed in rules.
Yes, Member Hilton. Some of the subsidiary law, the regulations certainly will be coming back to Parliament. And of course, you know that the rules are required to go through a consultation process. In terms of the timeline, so there'll be broad-based consultation and discussions around those. In terms of the timelines, I'm a bit constrained at the moment because it is something that we're having to review because, of course, a number of things have happened. But I think that, we are aiming to have those completed, I would say, shortly. But I think I would need to complete that additional review work and be able to give you those final timelines because I wouldn't want to give a timeline now. And in fact, that is not the case. But we had been charged to treat the development of the subsidiary laws as urgent. And so, as I said, the team had kept on working on those. And we had also brought on some additional resources in terms of some technical assistance that we'd received. And we're intending to take on additional resources as well to assist and to expedite the work.
So perhaps what I should have, Chairman, is just ask you, what is your intent in terms of how you deal with the act, the regs and the rules going forward? The report is one thing. I mean, that can
Right.
take.
So what I intend to do is bring the report and the amendments forward. I would move toward passage of the bill. However, I'd want to explore an arrangement that says we don't bring the bill into effect until the regs are ready. If you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I think, but
it would be good to have it passed, but effective day.
Okay.
We have the effective day coincide with the passage of the regulations.
And the sign off on the rules. Because the regs and the rules are
The regs and the rules, yes.
Miss Bailey, Miss Edwards, sorry, Miss Edwards.
Yes, Member Hilton.
Is it your understanding the regs definitely have to be, a resolution has to be moved? How would the rules be treated similarly?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question.
The rules that are subsidiary, those have to be the subject of a resolution as well as a regulation.
No,
Is that so?
no, Member Hilton.
Yeah.
The rules are to be developed by the commissioner, and those touch
Right.
and concern operational matters.
Right.
Those do not require approval by Parliament, but the regulations do. And some regulations require affirmative resolution and others negative resolution.
But on the rules, there will be stakeholder consultation, right?
Yes, all are subject to stakeholder consultation under the, I believe it's clause 269.
Yeah.
The 269 or 262 of the bill.
All right, just seeking that clarity. That's important. That's okay. And for that purpose, the opposition is considered a key stakeholder in that consultation, right? Correct?
Member Hilton,
Right,
I would say all of Jamaica, because it will be open to public consultation.
Yeah,
So
I know all
persons,
of Jamaica, including
yes.
the opposition.
Well, indeed.
Okay.
Well, I want you to understand the composition here today, Member Hilton.
Yes.
I am alone.
No.
So
That's my choice. That's my choice. Not by law.
No, but I'm showing a certain disposition there. So absolutely.
No. I on the rules, because the rules are, I asked because the rules, Chairman, as you can appreciate, are very, very important in terms of the operationalization of the customs and its procedure. So that's a significant bit. It may seem very subsidiary, but the devil, as they say, is in the details. So we're not liking to the devil, but we want to know the details.
Yes, understand. And thank you for asking those questions. They aid the process. The clarity is important.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's
Right. Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Jeffrey Foreman from the AGC. I just wanted to tie up a few matters regarding the report and the list of amendments. First, in relation to the list of amendments, I noticed that there are a few provisions in square brackets, and just wanted to ask if the committee intends to address those at this point in time. There was one section in particular I noticed there was like a period of time was to be stipulated, and right, this is on page 7 of the amendments list. That time period hasn't been included. Raise a query if those are to be addressed now.
I would assume so, Chairman. This is
Yeah, no, good catch. That's why we have everybody here. Good catch. So that is that's clause 184, subparagraph 2, or subclause 2, subclause F. If blank days have elapsed since authorization was suspended under subsection 1B and the commission is not satisfied, that the non-compliance has been remedied. And this allows the commission to revoke an authorization granted under 183.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So in relation to that provision, it would have been inserted by the CPC in response to the previous discussions of the committee. When the technical team looked at the proposed redraft, the proposed language that the CPC has introduced, we find that language to be acceptable. We have no objections to it. In relation to 184.2F that you've mentioned, we have and are proposing a period of 90 days, but that the commissioner be allowed to extend that time. So a minimum of 90 days. The thinking behind that is that the legislation would essentially be setting a minimum time period before the commissioner would be able to move to revoke on this ground. But of course, depending on the nature of the non-compliance, we think it's prudent that the commissioner have the power to extend the time to allow the holder of the authorization to comply. In our mind, allowing 90 days does no harm to the agency because, of course, the authorization would at that time be suspended right? So there'll be no risk, as it were, of the authorization being misused. And it also is in the interest of the hold of the authorization, in that we think 90 days is a fair period of time. It's a very generous approach, you know, but it certainly allows the person, we think, a reasonable time period to correct whatever non-compliance had caused the commissioner to suspend the authorization.
I don't think we'd want to have the commissioner have the power to keep it open-ended, though.
No.
No, but I think the approach suggested
90 days and you know, a possibility of an extension with a maximum of X.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And I think she's proposing, and are you suggesting another 90 days?
Well, I wasn't suggesting another 90 days, or thinking that because the authorization is something that's we think is granted ultimately by the commissioner in terms of for the most part, the special facilitations. We were minded to grant the commissioner that discretion to be able to allow the holder more time, because the circumstances may vary, where a person may need more than 90 days, as it were, to become compliant. But we're also thinking that it wouldn't be in the interest of the agency to have sort of an indefinite suspension, and so ultimately the commissioner would move. Having afforded the person a reasonable time period to comply, the commissioner would thereafter move to take the next steps to either reinstate the authorization or revoke it.
Minister?
Yes?
In the first instance, Ms. Edwards made mention that the 90 days was generous, which I agree is pretty generous. So if a person is in need of additional time, I agree with you, Minister, that it should be maxed. I would propose 30 days, considering that previously 90 days was quite substantial.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, I agree. We'd have to cap it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to me, 30 that you're saying, Senator, sounds reasonable in view of the 90.
And then after that, there's our resubmission.
May I invite that the members consider perhaps saying 60 days as a tie break, because bearing in mind that this provision is setting a statutory minimum, and what it means is that once that time period has passed and the commission is not satisfied, the commission will be moving to revoke. Obviously, 30 days, it does no harm to the agency. Just in terms of holding the balance between the agency and the holder of the authorization, may I suggest that you consider then 60 days?
I'm inclined to the 60 days, just because it's operational, and it sets the in this case the maximum. In this second instance, you're talking about a maximum period for extension by the commission. We can't foresee the complexities or the reasons in totality, and therefore, before a guillotine is set, I think he should be given, the person authorized should be given last chances and a reasonable time. And that's more than reasonable. So no one can, and what you don't want, Minister, is you don't want anyone to complain.
Well, I don't want to say, I get your point, but I wouldn't phrase it that way. Some people will complain, unavoidable.
Well, yeah, but if they complain, they just look unreasonable.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Well, Senator Allen, it's rare for the agency to be asking for more leniency that we're prepared to do.
Yes.
The other way around.
So I yield completely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator.
So in relation,
before you proceed, Ms. Edwards, I noticed that we had, based on what Mr. Foreman had brought to our attention, to look at the square brackets. There were other square brackets prior to page 7. So we might want to just start at the top. For example, there's a square bracket at the first schedule on page 2, referring to the first schedule. Which speaks to in section, what's that, 22, total or partial exemption. So maybe we could just look at all of the square brackets.
No, but that's a sensible suggestion. And thank you, Mr. Foreman, again, for pointing that out. Where's the first one you've seen?
On page 2 of the amendments,
Page 2, which clause?
first schedule.
No, sorry, page 2 of the amendment, I'm seeing started.
Yes, sorry, page 2 of the editorial corrections to the customs bill. Am I on page 2?
Oh, you must be somewhere
Right.
else.
Maybe if we do it by clauses, because the first one we saw
Okay.
related to clause 33.
Yes, 33.1 on
Yes.
page 3.
Yeah. You mean they're in square
I should
brackets?
say, right. I'm not sure why they're in square brackets. My own comparison of the report notes and the amendments tell me that these are largely reflective of what the committee agreed. So I'm not sure why they were square bracketed, but they're now there for the committee to consider.
I know that this, well, perhaps the CPC could speak to it more precisely, but I know that the CPC had asked the technical team to review to just be sure that we found those.
So are you okay with it?
Yes, we're fine with 33.1. The next one is 87.1B, and we're also fine with that. We are fine with clause 184, save, as I mentioned, the additional, the inserting of the time period which we just spoke to at 2F. And we had also invited the CPC to consider at 2C whether to use the words under the act or under this act. In relation to the other one is clause 279. That's where we saw the other square bracket. And that was in relation to a discussion that had arisen, the proposed new subclause 3, and we have no objections to that.
So the matter of under question of under this or the act seem that's resolvable. I mean, it should be under this act.
Yes, that's correct. It should be this act.
Yeah, this act. Yeah.
Right. The other adjustment is in relation to the second schedule. Well, we have already spoken to the first schedule, right? And so the lifting of certain portions of it. Just to be absolutely clear that in relation to the first schedule, the new Customs Tariff 2022 would only see changes being made to the arrangement of sections and to Section A. Section B is not affected by the 2022 tariff. All right. So one is looking at the list. The other adjustment on page, in relation to the second schedule, well, before I get to the second schedule, page 19 on the list, paragraph 5, the subheading there, total or partial exemptions, was in bracket, and we are recommending that that be removed and settled. And in relation to the second schedule, that is on page 22, the CPC had inserted the draft language and had given us 2 options to consider at the new paragraph 11, which would read, notwithstanding anything in the paragraph of this schedule. I'm just in a minor typo there, CPC with a capital W, where a goods declaration is submitted to the commissioner and the commissioner has reason to doubt the truth or accuracy of, and CPC gave us the option of these of language, anything contained in the declaration or contained in any document submitted in support of the declaration, or possibly the declared value of the goods concerned, and the technical team wishes to adopt the language, anything contained in the declaration or contained in any document submitted in support of the declaration. And
please just be clear about what it is that you're recommending, Ms. Edwards there. Is it that you're recommended and or?
No,
or?
so we're recommending utilizing the language in the first square bracket and deleting the language in the second square bracket. So the words, the declared value of the goods concerned would be deleted, and the paragraph would read, notwithstanding anything in the other paragraphs of the schedule, where a goods declaration is submitted to the commissioner and the commissioner has reason to doubt the truth or accuracy of anything contained in the declaration or contained in any document submitted in support of the declaration, the commissioner may, and continue.
Okay, all right, okay.
So those were the matters that arose in terms of matters on the list that were in square brackets. I understand that it may also be necessary, Chairman and members, to deal with a few other issues. I'm not sure what is the recommended approach. What it is that there would have been discussions in the committee, and perhaps the technical team would have raised the issue in relation to a particular clause. And we made a recommendation, and the CPC, in addressing the recommendation, may not necessarily have dealt with it in the way in which we would have initially proposed, because ultimately we're deferring to the CPC in terms of how it's actually done in the bill. I understand that it may be necessary for us to bring it to your attention for you to look at how the way in which the matter is proposed to be dealt with, and to see whether or not it is acceptable to you.
Agreed.
In the circumstances, then, I would direct your attention to clause 169, and you would see that the issues initially, when the technical team had raised it, I believe at the January 2022 meeting, we had indicated that we had no particular preference. The issue of the advance arrival and departure report for postal articles, that it could be dealt with either under the provisions, the general provisions dealing with advance arrival information, or the provisions treating specifically concerning postal articles. And the CPC has opted to treat with it at clause 169 as reflected in the report. But substantially, the substantive issue was agreed by the committee, and obviously the technical team is satisfied with the language that is used.
I have no objection, Chairman.
Okay.
All right. The other matter concerns clause 262. During the discussions, I'm not sure if there had been a specific decision to redraft clause 262, subclause 3. But I recall this is the whole issue surrounding consultations and the importance of the obligations. At the time, we had raised it in terms of wanting to carve out certain provisions that we thought, or certain matters that we thought were not suitable for the public consultation. But having regard to the concerns that were raised, and I recall in particular Member Hilton being concerned that the requirement for public consultation is a very important provision that has been put into this bill, signifies a positive move, and that he didn't want to see any watering down, as it were, of the provision. And the chairman had also expressed agreement with those sentiments. And so from my understanding, and again, I'll defer to being corrected by the CPC. The CPC appears to have redrafted it to make it clear that once it is that the regulations or rules have been put forth for public consultation, the commissioner or the minister, as the case may be, must consider the comments and make such corrections as are necessary before the rules or regulations are brought into operation. The technical team has no objections to the proposed redraft of the CPC.
Neither do I.
Sorry, Chair, may I just raise a question here on this point? On page 12 of the report, at the top, there lists the various carve-outs, and there are two listed here which are not reflected in the proposed amendments, and just wanted to be clear if that was which of these two should survive. So the two found in the report that are not in the list are GH. Is I one of them?
I is one of them. 3
I is one of them. Right. Relating to the internal administration of the customs agency, measures relating to the prohibiting or restricting of the import of export of any goods, and the delegation of any functions under this act. Is it the case that those three considerations the committee has not taken a decision to have those included as part of the amendments?
If I may, my recollection was that the committee would have agreed on those. So I think perhaps those were inadvertently left off.
I should think so. The rationale I offered, I think, would cover those three as well. I don't see the basis for an exception for those three.
Sorry, Member Hilton. Miss Edwards, just to make sure I understand what is here, you're saying that based on the work that we did for this clause, we're saying that the committee we are proposing that there is consultation to address these matters, A through I, correct?
No, Member Allen, we had agreed that all the subsidiary laws under the Customs Act should be subject to public consultation before they're implemented, with the exception of the matters listed. So these would, yes.
Okay, got you. Because I was about to say measure internal administration.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just to be clear, so the list of amendments should be updated to reflect those additional considerations. Just want to be clear on what should be done.
Yeah. The internal.
Go ahead, Member Hilton.
Could you repeat the three for me again? Internal administration and what are the other?
Says measures relating to the internal administration of the customs agency, measures relating to the prohibiting or restricting of the import or export of any goods, and the delegation of any functions under this act.
I think the point of contention, as I had a discussion, the point bearing some discussion was the prohibition of any goods. And I was making the point at that time about the commercial value, but I think the minister, some arguments were made in support of that, some in support of retaining that particular provision as being outside of the consultation, given perhaps the nature of the activity, some of it being based perhaps on health and other considerations. And I was minded to relent on that one. My recollection to have that carved out as being part of the carve out.
Okay, sorry. May I just correct myself here? I'm looking back at the list of amendments. Matters restricting or prohibiting the importation of goods is reflected in the amendments. So my query just relates to measures relating to the internal administration of the customs agency and the delegation of any functions under this act. So it's,
Okay,
so it's 2, not 3.
okay. Yeah, the third is as I recall it, and I think that would have been resolved. So, and the 2, I think those are appropriate for carve out, to my mind.
In that vein, may I also raise the matter of clause 254.8? Now, the report indicates that a decision was taken to include the words prima facie. Yes, so this is page 10 of the report at the bottom. With respect to subclause 8, it was noted that the payment record for an accused person would become admissible in evidence. However, it was not stated that it would be admissible as prima facie evidence, as was the case under clause 255.3b. Given the omission, your committee recommends that the clause be amended to include the words prima facie. That amendment is not reflected in the list of amendments for clause 254. And for coherence, I think it's something that should be included in the final document, unless there was a reason it was not included. I figure it might have been a slip.
Just confirming that yes, the technical team concurs that I'm going to anticipate that the list will be updated to include that.
Okay.
And I suppose for completion, so I just addressed matters in the report not reflected in the list. There are two amendments in the list that should also be reflected in the report. They relate to clauses 2623 and clause 270, subsections 10 and 11. So the idea is that what's in the report should also be reflected in the amendments for completeness, accuracy, and so on. And I think those are changes that can be made after the meeting and before the members sign off. But just bringing them to your attention.
Yes, if I may, Chairman, just to point out that in relation to clause 270. The adjustments that the CPC would have made at subclause 10 and 11, those are not actually, let me not say they're not substantive changes, because we had agreed on a new subclause 6, and so it had altered the provisions at clause 270 from speaking specifically to a customs broker to speaking to an agent. And from our reading, what the CPC then did to ensure that the provision is in fact consistent, she would have done some tidying up, as it were, at 10 and 11 by replacing the reference, the customs broker, and putting it, substituting the reference to customs broker with agent, so as to be consistent with what had been done at the new subclass 6. And we had also agreed that the liability for agents would cover not only that they would not be liable once it is that they'd made the appropriate disclosures, they would not incur liability for duties and taxes, expenses, and penalties. And so that additional language was inserted there, right? So that is the context, as we understand it, of the adjustments made at 10 and 11. Really just giving effect to matters that had already been agreed in relation to the new subclass 6.
Understood and agreed. Anything else, Ms. Hazel?
Yes. Yes, Chairman.
Yeah,
I
I know
believe,
Senator Allen has to leave at 5 o'clock, so we'll lose
yes,
our quorum, so you cannot
right.
take more time than that.
I am just going to deal with it very quickly.
I would not, knowing that I would be the only one holding the quorum, I wouldn't leave.
Okay, okay.
I believe this is the last one from us. It has to do with clause 269, subclause 2. This issue relates to translations and the right of customs to require an English translation. We recognize that we live in a global environment, and some documents may have words that are not in the English language. At the same time, we don't want to be asking for an English translation if it is not absolutely necessary. Jamaica is now a party to the revised Kyoto Convention, and the RKC standard in question is standard 3.19. And there it says the customs shall not require a translation of the particulars of supporting documents, except when necessary to permit processing of the goods declaration. We're not proposing to introduce the language that way, but we are suggesting that clause 269 be amended to make it clear that the circumstances in which the commissioner may require a translation, or that the commissioner may only require an English translation in circumstances prescribed in rules. And the idea there is to sort of limit and ensure that we're not asking for English translations in contexts that are unnecessary or which may be frustrating to the trade, but at the same time ensuring that we have the power to ask for the translation when it is necessary for customs to do its work, which is either to process a declaration or perhaps one auditing function or so. So we're proposing to move it into rules. It will allow us the circumstances in which we may ask for the translation. It will allow us to give effect, we believe, to the RKC standard, but still allow us to make changes in the future depending on what the needs may be. And so we're asking for approval of that. We had sent our thoughts on this to the CPC for her to, perhaps consider how that would be amended. It's not a substantial departure, I would say, from what is in the text now, but it would require some tweaking.
So has the CPC responded? Has the CPC responded?
Not as yet, but I must admit that we didn't exactly give her a lot of time.
Right. I'm just looking at it now, based on what has been said, I don't have any objection to tweaking the language to more accurately reflect the requirements of the protocol.
So the tweaking will occur between now and the submission of the report for signing. Is that what is being proposed? Or the language is already is satisfactory to the CPC? Which is it?
Well, we would adopt the wording suggested. So we would just delete the words that the words in the last 3 sentences of that subsection and substitute the suggested wording. So it would read, where any document required for the purposes of any customs law contains any words that are not in the English language, the commissioner may only require an English translation in the circumstances prescribed in rules.
And that addresses your concern, Ms. Edwards?
Yes, we believe that is a good balance. And of course, the rules will then be consistent with the RKC standard. But as we said, it would allow us, by moving into subsidiary law, to make changes as or if the need requires.
I have no objection.
Okay, Ms. Edwards, go on. Just when you move on to the next one.
I believe I have ticked everything on my list. I am hoping that if I've left anything
start
out,
some more. I don't believe you.
if I've left anything out, please, the members of the technical team, please bring it to my attention immediately.
Look in the drawer. All right, so members, I think we're probably going to have to meet again. I was hoping not to. not to request that of you, but with the changes that have been introduced today, for good order, might be useful for us to have the report updated to reflect these changes, have the amendment sheet updated to reflect these changes. And I asked of you just for one more time to make yourselves available. What I'm going to ask the team to do, Ms. Bailey, is when you update the amendment sheet and update the report, just highlight the changes vis-a-vis what you circulated today. So it makes the review of the members, you know, a little easier, right? Rather than having to read everything again or to scan through or review everything again. Okay, can we have that, Ms. Bailey?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. And members, I ask for your indulgence, so your understanding, just to meet once more. You know, we're not going to get it, Hazel, we're not going to get it perfect before, you know, I hate to say this, but I want to be just be practical, that from time to time, reports come from the committee and there's still one or two changes have to be made. So while we don't want to come from committee and have a whole lot of changes to be made, I want us to be, you know, mindful of that as well. So what I'm gonna ask for some time on the parliamentary schedule. Only problem with that is that we only have July, and I don't know what the parliament time is like in July. Ms. Bailey, do we have another time next week?
Chairman, next week, Thursday at 2 is available.
Okay. Right.
If not next week, you'd have to wait until the 21st of July.
And something else could easily take our space there. What I'd ask, look, can we get these documents updated and have them circulated by, you know, Monday evening, Tuesday morning to facilitate a Thursday meeting, please?
I'm sorry, Chair, but I doubt that I will be ready with the revised list by that time. I would suggest that the date of the 21st would be more feasible.
Well, you certainly have my support, Chairman, in meeting again that with regard to the tidying up that needs to occur. And I agree that though it won't, we're not expecting perfection, I think in a matter as important as the Customs Act, the revised Custom Act, I think we need to bring it as close as is possible. So I don't consider it a burden to meet once more.
All right, so thank you for your support, Member Hilton. Can you book July 21st then, please, Ms. Bailey?
Yes, Chairman.
All right, that's a Thursday?
Yes, it's a Thursday.
All right, so it's exactly a month from today. So we need to have everything in tip-top shape by then, right? With all the changes easily identified or readily identified. Go ahead.
Yes, Chairman, just for good form, in relation to the first schedule, you recall that I mentioned that the arrangement of sections will be changed and there'll be some adjustments to the headings. I also want to just note clearly that we're also proposing a few tweaks to the general note, not substantial changes, but minor things in terms of the use of the term items when it ought to be commodities.
Yes. So whatever
that kind
those
of thing.
changes, make sure they're reflected in an amendment sheet.
Yes.
And highlighted for us to see.
Okay.
Right? And in the report under some addendum, if there were not changes arose in our, you know, if there are tidy up changes that didn't arise in a meeting.
Right, so they will not, because I
But
have
don't
prepared
wait
to go
until,
through them
what I'm
today.
saying to you is, don't wait until the meeting to raise them.
No, Chairman. I was prepared to go through them today, but since we're not taking all the issues in relation to the schedule, but I just wanted to mention it so that it would have, I would have raised it at this meeting that we're going to be making some adjustments to the general note.
Right, just highlight those
Technical
adjustments.
edits.
Yeah,
Very well.
highlight those adjustments for us to be able to see when you send documents out. Yeah, this one indeed is a marathon. Indeed is a marathon. Anything else before we conclude? CPC, AG, customs, members. Okay, well, it remains with me to thank you all for your time and for your commitment. Ms. Edwards and Mr. Foreman, your contributions today and others were much appreciated. Ms. Grant from CPC, thank you for your support throughout this process. It is a marathon bill, but there are a lot of Jamaicans who are looking forward to a new regime once this has been passed by both houses of parliament. So it's well worth the effort. And again, I just want to thank you all and look forward to meeting on the 21st when we can sign off on the report and on the amendment sheet as amended out of this meeting. Okay. Thanks all very much.
You're welcome, Minister.
Okay, bye-bye.
Welcome, Chair.
And thank you guys, Member Hilton, Member Robinson, and Senator Allen for your contributions today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Minister. Have a good one.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. The way we treat our children directly impacts what they believe about themselves. That was a special parenting message brought to you